This episode of Around the Layout is brought to you by Spring Creek Model Trains. Family owned for nearly 25 years, Spring Creek is your destination for model trains. Check out springcreekmodeltrains.com for a wide variety of offerings from today's top manufacturers and exclusive products found nowhere else. Whether in Deschler, Nebraska, or at a train show near you, stop in and say wow. To see where they'll be next, visit their website at springcreekmodeltrains.com. From trackside to roadside and wherever you'd see a sign, Scale Signs has it all. With over 1,400 offerings in N, HO, S, and O scale, Scale Signs has the largest collection of fine scale signs on the planet. Come see the details that bring your models to life on their website, scalesigns.com. You could win a $200 gift certificate to Spring Creek Model Trains just by taking our survey. Head over to aroundthelayout.com/survey to give us your feedback and enter for your chance to win. The survey and contest ends on June 27th at 5 p.m. Eastern, so don't delay. Again, it's aroundthelayout.com/survey. ATLP Extra is our monthly newsletter delivered right to your inbox each month. Sign up for free at atlpextra.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Around the Layout, where model railroaders come to tell their story. My name is Ray Arnott, so glad you could join us. It's time once again to find out what's happening in model railroading, and joining me to do that, the editor of Model Railroad News, Tony Cook. Hello, Tony.
Hey, Ray, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It's yet another month. We're heading into summer months. We've got some exciting things in front of us, so I'm getting really pumped up.
It's hard to believe, but like we're almost at the halfway point of 2025, which it goes faster and faster. Yeah, there must be a speed curve I need to adjust here on my decoder for the year, I think.
I was just in Amherst last week, I swear.
I
It was
know.
like, and then all of a sudden it's June, but we've got some really exciting news still to talk about. But before that, we've got a special guest joining us, talking about those special events. I know we're going to be seeing him in late July out in St. Louis. And that would be the owner of Oak Hill Model Railroad Track Supply, Jeff Otto. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Ray. Hi, Tony. Happy to be here.
Well, Jeff, it's great to have you on the show. We've been talking about you, of course. You've been, leading a lot of our shows as we talk about Oak Hill Model Railroad Track Supply and the fantastic things that you do, but a chance for you to dive a little deeper into what you've been doing. And boy, we get to see all these really cool custom things that you do. And then, of course, you've got the Roadmaster Track series and some really cool stuff. We talk a lot about trains and rolling stock and locomotives and all that, but we need some track to run them on.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm the guy.
So, Jeff, we seem to see this story a lot where someone that gets into creating a product line or really gets into a certain thing, it's because like they needed something, saw like, well, I like the stuff that's out there on the market, but I'd like something different or better. So what kind of got you down that path?
Well, that's a great question, Tony. Actually, I'm into steel mills and I've been into model trains my whole life, kind of reconnected after college. And I wanted to replicate a yard ladder going into a steel mill in Sterling, Illinois, Northwestern Steel and Wire. And it had, I believe, 9 turnouts, very tightly connected. So I, built it and, it works. I actually still have it. I've never actually ran a train on it, but that kind of got me into the track, like, building the track and the turnouts and the throw bars and the points and all that. And I kind of just sparked my interest in track. Like, let me dive into this. And I kind of wanted to develop my own product and a way to make turnouts quickly and easily. But also I'm very prototype based. So I wanted everything to be as close to a prototype as possible. So, I started out with making aluminum templates at a local shop here in Wisconsin. And, I included all the ties. I didn't have a laser or anything like that. So I just supplied wood ties with the kits when people bought a template. But then I always, in the back of my mind, wanted to do tie plates. I used another product, and I just thought it was a little too time consuming. So I wanted to connect all the tie plates together as much as I could just to make it quick and easy to set down. So over the last probably 4 or 5 years, we've been developing, tie plates and also frogs, diamonds, tie rods to kind of pull everything together and make as close to prototype looking track as possible. But yeah, the whole steel mill diorama thing I actually still have in my basement. That's where it all started, was from that.
The frustration of it or trying to make it
Yeah.
go was this got to be a better way.
Right. And then also I used a lot of PC board ties making that. The new Roadmaster series doesn't require PC board ties at all. And actually doesn't require template because the tie base is the template.
Now you say Wisconsin. The thing that always catches me when I see your logo, because I grew up in Central Illinois, is the orange and white Illinois Central. What do you have, like an Alco 630 or 636s that they bought?
Yeah, yep. Yeah, yeah.
Why is that there for a Wisconsin guy?
Well, I grew up in northern Illinois, just miles south of Rockford. So the Illinois Central ran by my house in a little town called Odina, Illinois, just south of Dixon. And I never saw a 636, but I've got, I think, 3 brass 636s in Illinois Central. And I just love that locomotive. I've never seen one, never even seen an older one that's sitting in a museum, but I just thought it was cool. So my designer, I gave him some pictures of one. I said, make a logo. So that's where the orange comes from. Then on the Roadmaster logo, you'll notice that there's an orange dot on it. Well, what that Roadmaster logo is a signal head. So normally it would be red or green, right? The light.
Mm-hmm.
But since it's Oak Hill, I made it orange.
I did see, I don't remember it, but when I was a little bitty kid in the St. Louis area at their Valley Yard, there's pictures of me, I think, in the back of like my dad's Chevelle. And there's a set of the 636s had come in on the IC before the ICG days. But yeah, they were rare ducks, but very cool.
Yeah, they worked out. And then on my logo too, on my Illinois Central or my Oak Hill logo, not the Roadmaster, there's a couple little hidden features in it. Well, obviously the oak leaves, and I live on Oak Hill Lane, so that's where the Oak Hill came from. Thought that was kind of cool. But if you look in the upper right, there's it looks like a little V, and those are actually geese. Because
nice.
when my designer started designing the logo, I had went on a trip up to Saskatchewan after geese, and so he just kind of threw that in there. It's kind of a little extra.
And now we haven't mentioned scale at all, but is it HO primarily?
It's HO scale for the Roadmaster series. I do make HON3, HON3 dual gauge. I've done a couple S things, a couple O things, some N scale, but it's primarily HO scale, especially in the Roadmaster.
So when you start making track for other people, what kind of challenges were they presenting to you? I mean, I know I presented you a challenge because you made a custom Y for me to bailed me out of an issue. What kind of things that were people looking for when they first started sending you the custom track requests?
Honestly, the biggest thing that I did, especially, when it first started, was diamonds, like crossings, diamonds. I remember I did a triple diamond for a gentleman, or a double, 3 diamonds crossing 1 track. That was the biggest challenge, is the diamond, because there's so many little pieces that have to fit perfectly. But then I also do a lot of like curved turnouts people want, or they want to fit this turnout in a certain space. So then I just make it work.
Now, when you say you make those, is this a custom piece of track that I would just place onto my railroad, or you put the kit together that then the person makes like those diamonds or makes that piece, or do you do both?
Initially, I did both. For a curved one, I didn't provide kits for curved turnouts just because they're complex enough. But regular straight turnouts, 90, 19-degree diamonds, I made kits for, but mainly it was turnouts that the kits were. I'd say the diamonds I pretty much made for people. But now with the Roadmaster series, the kits are super easy to make for I've got a 90, a 70, a 19-degree. And they're pretty straightforward. There's no cutting. All the kits everything's all put together, cut. For the diamonds, there's no filing because they're cast diamonds. They're already done.
Oh, well.
So you talked about when you got involved with making your own, the research and the education you started to get about track. And I think this is one of the amazing parts of the hobby is there's so many different facets that you can just latch onto. And whether it be guys like me that are crazy for 50-foot high cubes, or others that find these things that are in the hobby within, hobby within the hobby kind of stuff. For you, it was track. Talk about that research process and how you learned so much about the track and the detail for it.
Well, that's a great question, Ray. Just initially, it was just perusing the internet. I had a book by Kalmbach about track. There's a track book. There's a yard book all about yards, industry. I would just read those just every day, go through. And then I had my friend Ed Dressel. I met him in St. Louis RPM many years ago. And he kind of had the same interests as I did. And he introduced me to what a track drawing is, basically what the railroads use to make their track. So he provided me with a lot of those drawings and kind of got me in the hunt for more. I've even had people send me like blueprints of track, which is really cool. But I also subscribe to the ARIMA portfolio of track work, which is like 250 pages of track diagrams.
Oh, wow. When you got the first one, that must have been like gold for you.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's so much information on that document and I've spent hours and hours looking at it. I haven't even scratched the surface. Like, for instance, we were designing the 90-degree diamond and the tie plates, based off of the drawings. There's a little U-shaped bracket that my friend Wayne Snyder, he's like, Jeff, we should put that in there. I'm like, I never saw that until you just pointed it out. So on the actual tie plates for the 90-degree diamond, there is this little U-shaped bracket, which was how they welded the diamond to the plate. It's just full of little details like that, and some things takes a while to figure out what they are, but it's very useful.
When you start talking hand laid track, a couple of my guys at Model Railroad News do that kind of work. But to me, hand laid track is I open the Bachmann train set and I take the little twist tie off the group of 18 radius curves, snap them together, and hand lay them on a 4x8 sheet of plywood. And that is hand laid track. So would I have the skill set to move up from that level of doing hand laid track to stuff like yours? What is it? What kind of tools do you need? How is it for someone that's not tried it but is curious or would like to take on that challenge?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question, Tony. Well, let's just talk about a diamond. Let's talk about a 90-degree diamond, for instance. The diamonds are cast. You have the tie plates, and then on a 90-degree diamond, you've just got the straight track on each corner. So there's 8 pieces of rail, the diamonds, the tie plates, and then the tie base, which is laser cut. And the way the tie bases work with the tie plates is the tie plates have holes in them. There's a hole, like under a tie plate, there's a hole. Where it goes on the tie base, there's a hole. And I supply it with a little pin, and you basically just put the pin in the hole, wave a tie plate over, and you do that like each diamond, you'll do this corner, that corner, and that corner. So there's 4, they're all 4 separately isolated. So you just do one corner, like put a pin here, pin here, and then you glue it down with Pleobond. Once it sets up, then you put the diamond on, and the diamonds and the frogs for turnouts are actually designed, the tie plates are designed so that they actually set in there only one way.
Huh.
You can't put it here or here, it only goes here. And it fits in one way. So that's how we designed. And like a frog will sit on, and it won't go this way and it won't go that way. It just sits there. So it's basically self-gauges itself. And the tie plates where the rail goes is the same way. The way we design the tie plates, it has if you look at a tie plate, it goes like this, but then there's a gap like this, and the rail sits in that gap. Well, we've simulated that with the tie plates by doing a half etch. So it takes out half of the material, but the part up here where the rail would sit into and the real thing, it sits up against that little flange. So it just sits in there. The rail does not wiggle in the tie plate.
So basically the tie plate becomes a kind of a template, right? And it kind of helps hold everything together. So it's not like the hand laying of, got to make sure it's exactly on gauge and spike it exactly. And then the tie plates become basically a permanent in place template.
Yep. Right. Yeah. And along with the little holes and the little pins to place the tie plates on the tie base, that takes the guesswork out of it.
I bet you could do that, Tony.
I don't know. Do you have to solder? Am I going to burn my fingers doing this?
Well, the only reason that you want to solder, I use solder paste, and you just let's just talk about keep talking about diamonds since we've been on that subject. So all you have to do is some part of the diamond or the rail needs to be electrically connected with the tie plate, because then the whole thing is power. So I just use solder paste and just put a little dab, and I use a hot air soldering station. So it's basically super hot air that comes out in a really small stream.
Wow. Okay. I've never seen that.
You just hit it for like literally 2 seconds, and then it melts the solder paste, and now you have an electrical connection.
Oh, cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's very cool.
I mean, you could go crazy and like solder everything if you really wanted to, but you don't need to, because then you use Pleobond on the underside of the rail with the tie plates, and then once Pleobond is heat activated, so that once it's sealed, then you're good. You've got an electrical connection, and the turnouts, the diamonds, everything all having a little tab on the end that you just bend down and you connect your feeder wire to that.
Talk about the custom turnout process. I know we went through it, and I was really amazed by how easy you made that as we went back and forth with a few templates. But talk about the process. If somebody out there listening right now says, I've gone to the store, I've looked on the shelf, and what's available just isn't what I need. How do they start to communicate that with you to get the right turnout for their layout?
Well, there's a couple of ways. Kind of like you did. You just sent me a tracing of what you needed, right? Because I think you had something kind of built in place before. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I took laid down a sheet of paper, and I started to trace it, and then I realized I wasn't a good tracer. So I took my fingers and I rubbed the paper so that you could actually, when you got it in the mail, we used good old snail mail, and then you got it in hand so you could see where I had rubbed the piece of paper.
Right. Yeah. Or you just take a pencil, the side of a pencil, and just rub it, or a piece of chalk, whatever. And then you get so basically I get that tracing, if you will. Some people scan it and email it to me. And then what I do is I put that into the computer, into AutoCAD, and then I just start making lines. And like if it was I think that was a number 6Y, but let's say it's a turnout, who knows what number it is, right? I just, make lines, figure out what the angle is, and then I know what turnout it is. And then I just use the computer and make the drawing, print it out. And when I print it out, I have it laminated. And then I know where all the ties, I know where the rail is, and I just figure out where I want the PC board ties to at least hold the rail, build that, and then take it off, and then put the wood ties down, and then attach the wood ties to the rail, and that's it. The one thing that I've came up with as far as diamonds, because someone will give me a random degree diamond. It's not a 30, it's not a 60, it's not a 90. Who knows what degree it is? Doesn't really matter. But I came up with a technique where, again, I put it in the computer, put it in AutoCAD, and if it's like this, let's say it's like this. I'm sorry, I'm using my fingers, but it's like this. Basically, you draw a line through the X this way and this way. I print it out, and then you fold it in half, and now you've got your line coming in here, and you go in the belt sander, and you have the little piece of paper sitting like this, and then you just go and line up the rail, and just you'll get a perfect connection every time, whether you need this connection, that. So that's how I do custom diamonds. It doesn't really matter what the degree is.
And of course, we're asking you to describe something that really is a visual thing on an audio podcast, but Jeff's showing us a bunch of different angles with his fingers, and he's trying to draw it with his hand, which is, I get it. It's tough to do and tough to explain, but the cool part is if you do have a question or you want to know how this is done, Jeff's going to be out and about in some places, including the St. Louis RPM, where you could ask him these questions. Talk about where we're going to find you out there and then any other places that you're going to be.
Yeah, so I'll be at St. Louis. I'm going to have the Roadmaster series, and we have hoping to have a couple new items. The number 10, number 7 turnouts might possibly, if we have the number 7, the number 10, we're going to have a number 12 crossover. And then also we'll have our Roadmaster detail series, which are tie plates, detail tie plates, which a lot of people saw those in Amherst. They're basically, everyone's seen a yard and there's like a pile of tie plates here, there's tie plates here. Well, these detail tie plates will allow you to simulate that. I've also have spikes. I have HO and O scale spikes. And then obviously the tie rods, which is what controls the points on a turnout, which we've recently redesigned them and made them wider and taller. We had some issues with where the hole in the middle is, where your switch machine switches it, there wasn't enough space between the hole and the outside of the tie rod, so we made it thicker, so they're much more robust and they're not going to break. So that was, I apologize to anyone that bought them, but I did offer free ones to anyone that bought them that wanted replacements. So a lot of people have taken advantage of that. But also another thing that I have is some detail, like for diesel locomotives and for freight cars, photo etches. Tony Sissons, good friend of mine, gave me all of his etches, and we've developed a few new etches as well. So those will be there. We'll have kits. We'll have built track, straight track. And I do have a new product that I'm going to have a few people test it, but all I'll say is it's going to allow you to lay your track very easily if you want specific spacing, and also will allow you to help make easements and certain radiuses.
Well, Tony, I'm excited to get to St. Louis and check out all these details.
Lots of neat stuff, lots of new stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course we'll have the tried and true. Well, so for frogs, we have number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8, number 10, and number 12, and diamonds 19, 90, and 70 degree. 74 degree is coming, diamond. That's not going to be here before St. Louis. And then also what we didn't have at Amherst, what we do have now are the tie bases, like I said, that go along with the tie plates for the Roadmaster series. And we're really excited about that. I actually bought a laser and tried to make them myself for several months, kind of gave up. But now I have a local small business in the town next door to me who makes them for me. So works out perfect.
That's awesome, Jeff. We look forward to seeing you in St. Louis, which will be in late July of 2025 at the RPM, the most awesome RPM, I think, of all of them, which I've said before, I never knew that was always just the one I went to because it was local. And I have so many people tell me how great St. Louis was. So I've got to get to more RPMs to judge that. But we'll see Jeff Otto in Oak Hill at the St. Louis RPM in July. Jeff, in the meantime, if someone's looking for more information, obviously your website, have you got any videos or anything else, Facebook page, that kind of thing? Where can we go and find more information?
Yes, Tony. Our website is www.ohrtracksupply.com. You can find me on Facebook. Just type Oak Hill, it'll come up. Or you could type hashtag Oak Hill Track. Instagram, same thing, hashtag Oak Hill Track. That'll pull me right up. And on YouTube, we have a few videos. We're having more in the future, but I do have a couple videos on how to install the tie rods. So if you just type Oak Hill tie rod on YouTube, you should be able to find it and see how awesome and exciting they are to put together.
And of course, we'll share all those links on our website as well, aroundthelayout.com/166. Jeff, so awesome to see you. Look forward to seeing you in St. Louis, July 24th through the 26th.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, guys. I look forward to seeing you both in St. Louis as well, and everyone else.
Well, Tony, I think if you can get yourself doing some soldering and not burn yourself, I think you could lay some track.
Do you think so? But then if I
I've
did
got
it,
a level of confidence in you.
if I hand laid all that track, then I'd have to take the trains out of their boxes and all that stuff. I mean, this is a slippery slope, Ray, that it could be anarchy here in the house with all my trains out of their boxes. I don't know.
Yeah,
Let me think about it some more.
All right. If you think about it, and then let's talk about some of the new stuff that you can keep in boxes.
There you go. There you go. Speaking of newly boxed stuff, Athearn just delivered a group of Genesis HO scale GP40-2s, GP40P-2s, and GP40-2Ls, which would all be 1970s into the early 80s for that -2 series of GP40s. The real cool things, I think, in the group are the GP40P-2s, and that was that set of 3 that Southern Pacific bought to cover Bay Area commuter stuff as they were retiring train masters. And they got back their SDP 45s that were on loan to Amtrak, that then those new GP40P-2s and the SDP 45s got to show their flair every day to commuters in the Bay Area, Oakland to San Francisco. There's a new group of those. And I'm trying to remember, there's a couple of neat, those by the mid 80s, Caltrains was running all that, and they had F40s. So those became surplus. They took the steam generators out of them, renumbered them. And Athearn has done some neat prime for grime examples that take you deep into the 90s when they're patched Union Pacific. So some really wild looks for those. And the Jeep 40-2L is that wide nose, the Canadian one. And I think there's a Main Central legendary liveries in that group. And the GP 40-2s have a bunch of neat road names included. There's a DT&I that I picked up that I thought was really awesome with that kind of modern, that big black speed letter DTI on the side. So cool group there from Athearn. And by the way, Athearn paused new announcements in May of 2025. I received word today and announcements for both those delayed May 2025 and June 2025 announcements will all see the light of day later this month. So double dose of Athearn news coming at the end of June.
Well, when it comes to releases from Athearn, in the words of the great Jim Wiggin, high greens.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of new announcements, Class 1 Model Works is going to be doing Santa Fe's peaked roof caboose. This will be their first, I think it's their first caboose that they've done some rolling stock, and they've done some neat loads for their depressed center flat car, and those wheel loads are tremendous. If you've not looked at those, the wheel loads that go on various flat car lengths are really awesome and ready to set on a flat car. I've reviewed those before in Model Railroad News, but take a look at class1modelworks.com and look over those products. The peaked roof caboose will be a Santa Fe style. I think the original ones in the mineral red were like 500 series. And then their CE, I think their CE3s is what they end up being. And they've got all the lights and the little end markers and all that kind of great stuff. So first caboose in HO scale will be a Santa Fe prototype. No surprise there. If you know the folks at Class 1 Model Works, there's some Santa Fe folks involved in that company. But that is a newly announced new model coming from them.
Awesome, awesome.
Our friends at Rapido, who I don't think they ever sleep. No. I say that a lot, and boy,
I think they do. I think they eat a lot of candy and drink a lot of Mountain Dew too, because they are definitely full of energy. Yeah,
it must be. Well, we've got a couple of really interesting things from them. General Electric's E44 electric locomotive was just announced for HO scale, and Chicago Transit Authority L cars also just announced for HO scale, and they're doing an elevated track system. So if you thought, well, that's cool, but there's no way I'm going to build all that girder and panel stuff to do an elevated track. They are doing straight and curved sections that will be double track, and the track bed has all of the different detail of like the outer bumper rails and other things that are correct for that Chicago commuter or transit line. And then the cars will be married pairs, I believe, and they are powered with a coreless motor down in the trucks. That way the insides, because they have the big windows that you can see in, nothing will be hidden. They'll have full interior detail, and they're doing early and late versions. The early one had control stands at each end of the two cars. So like the A car had the control, the B car had a control. And then in later years, they took out that extra control stand and added more seating or another restroom or something into that car. That will be included in the run. There's a couple of different paint schemes for those too. The E44 is a very interesting release. It is the closest thing to it that's been done in plastic HO would be the Bachmann Spectrum E33, which is a slightly older, came out just before it, version of that General Electric big electric locomotive. And it was one that I've always had on my list of, wow, I wish they'd bring that back because that's a really cool model. So this is one that's not been done. The E44 was the follow-up to the E33 series. Penske owned them, then they become Penn Central Conrail, and then Amtrak has some of them. And Rapido does electrics like nobody else. That New Haven EP5 is just an amazing one with the pantographs that raise and lower under DCC control. Same thing coming for this E44. This is going to be an eye-popping model. I think they were called bricks because they have that they're just very squared off looking locomotive. They ride on those awesome tri-mount trucks like the U25Cs did. So just really cool and odd prototypes there from Rapido, the Chicago Transit Authority L system with the track system, and the GE 44s are brand new announcements from them.
And it's just neat that they covered it in so many different eras from, like you said, from Pennsylvania to Penn Central. I see a couple different variants of the Penn Central, including the red and white PC logo. And then, right on through to Big Blue and Conrail and the Amtrak and a couple different paint jobs in Amtrak as well. So
yeah, they're covered and they're nailing it all there. And I love the Amtrak silver with the black top and bottom is the prototype. And I was ecstatic to see they're going to do a what if Amtrak Phase 3, which is the equal width red, white, and blue bands wrapped around the center of the locomotive, which is not prototypical, but will be a what if release for that E44. So already on my want list there is to have one of those, but very, very cool. Yeah. Love all the, and Rapido's got so many things landing right now. Those FTs. I saw the little, I always call it a baby train master, but they're not. Those little H14 or 15 44s that those are coming out finally. So just lots of great stuff. Rapido's definitely one to keep up with. Our buddy David Elbach, the Thrall 60-foot auto parts boxcar is back for a second run. This is the 5880 cubic foot, 60-foot double plug. And I think it's a high cube. That's pretty close to, that's kind of in your neck of favorite freight cars.
It's close. I mean, we won't kick it out, but yeah, it's awesome. The double plug boxcar, and
that's very cool. And there's
tangent
cool.
Just here you go. Surprise. Here it is.
Yeah.
I love that.
And all out. Yeah. I picked up the yellow Ship It on the Frisco, and there's a Milwaukee Road and a Canadian Pacific, which I messaged David on it because when I first glanced at the shot of all the cars, the CP one is like CPAA reporting marks, and it's just really plain. It's brown. I'm like, oh, this must be like a repaint. And then when I'm reading the information, that's the as delivered. I said, man, you're kidding me. They got these cars about 1970, and it's not a big, beautiful like CP rail with the multi-mark. What a missed opportunity. He said, no, that's how they came. They're just CPAA on a brown car. So no flash, but it's a beautiful car there. There's a Milwaukee Road, and there's two Santa Fe's. I think I've mentioned them all. That's the Thrall 60-foot auto parts boxcar, and it is new and available now, limited run from Tangent Scale Models.
Can you keep a secret? We don't tell anybody, just you and me.
I'm pretty good at it. A lot of folks in the industry will tell me things, okay. And I have yet to blab until it's time.
Well, we got to keep it a secret because I'm finding having my wife in the Friends of Around the Layout podcast group is not working out well for me when I start talking about boxcars and in rolling stock I'd like to buy. So we got to keep this a secret. When I went to the NERPM, I saw some more Tangent PS2 4750 covered hoppers. Another run, they knocked it out of the park. And they had a couple weathered family line system cars there, the SCL number car, but they patched them for modern CSX. I can't remember who the modeler was, but they knocked it out of the park. So I went on eBay and I found two more. So those were hidden in a brown box. And of course, when boxes come in, I go, oh, it's for the podcast, right? Quote, for the podcast.
See, there you go.
So just keep that a secret. Don't tell anybody, because I don't want it getting back to my wife. But yeah, the Tangent just knocks it out of the park. I love their, rolling stock. And I love the fact that when I see something out on the road and then I can go back and find something that Tangent's done, it's absolutely amazing. And I can't wait to somehow dive into weathering these and patch them into the modern CSX, but still have that old Family Line Systems logo banging around on my layout.
That is very cool. Yeah. And, you got the podcast as the excuse. That's what I tell my assistant editor, Shane Mason, when he says, Brooks is going to get mad at me. I said, tell her it's for the magazine.
Yeah.
So, and in fact, Pamela, she does my taxes, and I usually always get told, do you know how much money you spent? I'm looking at some of these expenses. Do you know how much you spent on railroad books and trains? I'm like, I can go pull the stuff right off the shelf and go, this is in that issue of Model Road News. That's in Diesel Era. This was an HO Collector. I said, it's all an expense for work.
I think I have to insert some kind of disclaimer here that the opinions of Tony Cook and Ray are not necessarily the express, and do not try this at home. One of those things. Yeah. We're not responsible for you sleeping on the couch tonight, but yeah, here's some good advice from Tony and Ray.
That's how it works. And I just always act surprised, like, really? Are you sure? Well, I'm sure you're sure. Because you figure out, I know. Yeah. Wow. I mean, it's all there. It's all on paper though. Finally, if I can remember the road names on these, Walthers mainline Gevos, there's a new run of those. They do these all the time. It seems like that Gevo and the 70 Ace, because it's modern contemporary power. It's a great price locomotive with proto drive. I mean, it's a wonderful model. But this new run, if you're like, oh, more Gevos from Walthers mainline, take a look, because they're doing the CSX, the heritage paint schemes are in that group. And I believe CPKC is the other one. It's a new one that hasn't been out yet, is in that group as well. So that's new HO scale Walthers mainline Gevos. That's a nice budget price model. It does come as a DCC version with ESU sound as the upscale one, and then there is a standard DC as well. But those are a recent announcement from Walthers, so they'll be nailing some of those. And I don't know how many are there now. The CSX heritage units are in that group, and then as I say, I think the CPKC's in there. So
it is, and so is a Norfolk Southern and a, like you said, UP in the I guess now older, with the flag on the side of the long hood. That
that's now one scheme out. So yeah, exactly.
BNSF H3. So I hope when I fly into Kansas City here in just a few weeks, when we go out to Deschler, Nebraska for the Spring Creek Model Trains show, as they celebrate their 25th anniversary, I hope I get to see at least a few CPKC units, one maybe from the air or whatnot. I've already been told where to sit on the aircraft, thanks to Captain Dave Appenasano. He's told me where to sit and where to look as I'm flying into places. So hopefully we'll get to see at least one of those.
Oh, very cool. And that's right around the corner. Yeah. July 4th weekend, we'll be in Deschler, Nebraska for the 25th anniversary of Spring Creek Model Trains. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be a great trip, and looking forward to doing some live events there. We'll have a schedule coming out real soon. We're also going to be talking to all the manufacturers that are going to be there, and we'll also be walking around the awesome modular layouts that'll be set up as well, talking to folks there. So lots of content is going to be coming out of Deschler, as they at least double the population of little Deschler, Nebraska. I'm looking forward to being out there, see it for the very first time. I can't wait to stop in and say, wow. And I've already got a stack of cars that, again, don't tell anybody. Keep this a secret. This is just between us. But there's a few box cars that are already waiting for me out there.
Oh, yeah.
It's a high cube. So, if you didn't guess that.
Awesome.
So we got a busy July. We're going to Deschler. Then at the end of the month is the St. Louis RPM, July 24th through 26th. And boy, we're just going to have an awesome July, aren't we?
Absolutely. And I should have White River Productions will be at the St. Louis RPM this year for the first time officially. I've been there with Shane Mason, my assistant editor at Model Railroad News. We've had tables where we're just showing our magazine stuff I do for White River. But this, we're going to have Shelley's going to be there from White River. So, because that was always the thing, people would come and ask me, I want to renew my subscription to this, or can I find out about that? I'm like, oh, well, yes, we're here, but we're not really here. There's nobody here that knows anything or knows how to do stuff. It's just us guys that make the magazines.
And then one of the exciting things about the St. Louis RPM that I was honored to be named is the moderator for the keynote panel. The 2025 theme for the St. Louis RPM is technology, advancing the how-to for prototypical railroad modeling. And the keynote is actually going to be a roundtable with some of the who's who of model railroading. Bill Darnaby, the owner of the Maumee Route HO Scale Layout. Nathan Holmes, he's the co-owner of Iowa Scaled Engineering. Tony Custer, owner of the Nickel Plate Road St. Louis Division HO Scale Layout. Bob Perrin, the owner of the Illinois Central St. Louis Division HO Scale Layout. And podcast favorite, Scott Thornton, owner of the Iowa Interstate Railroad Millen Branch HO Scale Layout. So we've got 5 great model railroaders going to all talk about how they have incorporated technology into their layouts to make it more prototypical and how you can do it too. It's going to be an awesome roundtable. I'm honored to be the moderator for that roundtable. That will be the Friday night of the St. Louis RPM. So make sure you get yourself to Collinsville, Illinois, and come visit Tony and I.
Awesome. Wow. That's a very neat honor, Ray. That Friday night presentation is always kind of the kickoff for the RPM. And what a neat group of guys you've got there.
Absolutely. I can't wait for it. And all the preparation starts now.
And my new HO Collector Annual 2025 that I'm putting the finishing touches on here in mid-June as we're recording this will round up all of the AHM freight cars in 116 pages. So a wonderful guide to all of those crazy things, from the FlexiFlow to the helium car to just the other day I saw someone post on Facebook saying, "What is this car?" And it was the pulpwood car that's actually an N&W prototype and AHM never made it in N&W. They made a ton of other road names, but wow, they missed the one that actually owned it. But anyhow, so yeah, it'll be a fun book because, again, as I say, those Facebook posts and that I see a lot with, what is this car? What is this thing? Who made this and why? It's like, well, yeah, I don't know why it was made, but it was made in HO as a plastic model in about 1970. So you can have all that information in 116 pages of color photos and info with the HO Collector Annual. And I believe that goes on a pre-order special, should be right around July 1st on White River shop.whiteriverproductions.com website.
Well, awesome stuff there, Tony. And what else do you have going on? And where else can we find more Tony Cook?
Diesel Era Magazine is a quarterly that I do for White River Productions. Model Railroad News is the monthly 100 pages of new products, news, and reviews. I've got such a neat group of guys reviewing right now. Joe Bohannon, Jason Quinn, Jack Ross, Ryan Crawford, Justin Sobeck. Sure, I'm forgetting somebody that'll peg me after the show.
How did you get all those guys together to work? Holy moly.
I bribed them. I actually bribed them with models.
Ooh.
So yeah, there you go. But so Model Railroad News, check it out. Same with Diesel Era. And as I mentioned, the HO Collector Annual. You can find that in all the other great publications from Narrow Gauge Gazette, Road Model Craftsman, Passenger Train Journal, and more at shop.whiteriverproductions.com.
Awesome stuff. Well, Tony, thank you so much for coming by and sharing the news with us. Can't wait to talk to you in July.
Awesome, Ray. Looking forward to our trips.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Around the Layout. Learn more about today's episode, check out past shows, and much more on our website, aroundthelayout.com. Show your support by becoming an operating crew member at aroundthelayout.com/crew. Follow us on social media, aroundthelayout.com/social. And send us your feedback, aroundthelayout@gmail.com. Thanks for hanging out with us around the layout.